So we did a lot of recording today, setting up episodes, and Shrem's left a jersey behind that needs some work. All right, this one of a few that isn't customized, is going to be eventually, and he said he got it for $32, which that's how you do this. But there is a lot of fraying, which does not surprise me at all for a Reebok. Let's go through step by step. How do you fix something like this? Because by fixing a jersey, you can make it a whole lot better bargain. You can buy cheap, make it look good, make them last, and that's how you really grow a collection instead of buying full retail prices. So I'm John, here for Ugly Thirds, one of these episodes of Loose Threads, and let's take care of some loose threads. So let's start by assessing the damage here. Now, there's some fading to the stars. Nothing we can do about that if you'd even notice it. Most people never would. But this fraying along the outside edge, yeah, you're going to notice that. This bubbling, I don't have a solution for that yet, but that's not bad. And he's someone who doesn't put them in machine wash. He oxy baths, which probably the smarter way to go, all things considered. So that's not going to get much worse on his watch. But this, yeah, you got to do something about this because this is only going to get worse. And you can see it's really getting chewed up along the edge. But this is a super easy fix. And honestly, with this logo and how it's set up, this is going to be a breeze. Okay, so here's the part that's probably going to cause the most dread for people, because we have to get rid of all these frayed pieces, or they're just going to be there but with stitches over top, and that's never going to work. They're still going to come through, and it could in theory make it worse. So some good sewing scissors and just being careful with it. We're going to need to trim this away. Now don't go too far. That's and I'm sure that's that's easy to say. It's just about trimming away what's coming up. And you want to make sure you don't cut jersey fabric. So bending it over the edge of the table like I'm doing here, or just going like this to try and force them to pop up, and then I don't actually have to get close to the jersey to trim. These don't have to be super close trims. They just have to be gone enough. And even sometimes I like doing where I don't even cut them. I just kind of let the scissors do the work. Sewing scissors, yeah, your mom was right. You shouldn't use them on anything else. These things will cut bone if you let them. But if you do that, you're going to dull them, and that's why you use them on nothing that isn't cloth. So I'm going to get the most I can out of this crest that I've pulled off. You can see just how big the zigzag stitches are, and it's good to pick any jersey. It doesn't have to be a crest you've pulled off. Every jersey has these kind of stitches in it. Look for them and use them, and they have to be a zigzag, right? You don't want any of the ones that are puffy edged, because this is how two pieces of twill are kept together, and it doesn't keep it perfectly from fraying, but it'll do a pretty good job. So I have my trusty piece of test cloth, and we're going to get these numbers right here. Look, every machine varies. This is the width of how wide that stitch goes, and this is the length, how far the foot moves it until the next stitch. And so between the two, you can regulate exactly to one of these. So let's set that up and do that. All right, I've got my trusty piece of test cloth. Let's try this at 2 and 1. Okay, and looking at that, yeah, that's pretty good. With the zoom, I guess it's harder to tell. I think that would be good for patches. That might actually match my Coho crest here. Yeah, I think we're going to go with that. Now, let's go a little wider. I think doing this at a 3 width is probably going to give us what we want for a crest. On a patch, on nameplate letters, you might want something that narrow. I think it's going to help something a bit wider. Oh, that's a lot of extra happening there. Yeah, that's definitely better. Let's take a look. Panning down, tilting down. Compare those two. Yep, that's what we want. So I've got my 3 and 1. And look, once you know what you're doing, you might not have to test these things ahead of time. But sewing machines are fickle, and any chance you can get to try and work out kinks ahead of time, do it. Okay, so basically my view here at the sewing table, we see what we need to do. I'm going to start somewhere nice and where no one's going to notice really if there's an overlap, and I think it's going to be right under here. No one's eyes start in the middle of the word, so I'm going to start by sliding this under one layer only. You don't want to stitch to the front to the back. Again, I've done that. It's not good. So make sure nothing else got underneath it. Set the foot down. I'm going to zoom a bit for your benefit. And you want to make sure you get your needle one end over and one end on. So as it's going to zigzag, it's going to go over the edge and then through the twill itself for the actual crest. And so when I work this along slowly, it's going to zigzag its way there, over top of that edge, basically just running and covering it so that that whole frayed edge is now kind of encased. And so I am going to rotate slowly around this C as best as I can, trying to follow the contour. There is definitely no need to rush these things because I want to get it right. Honestly, you get a better view than I do with this zoom, because on white, it's not always the most obvious. Okay, we're going to get into a corner, and I'm going to make sure that I have my needle firmly planted so I can rotate. And you get the benefit of zoom. I'm going to make sure that that needle is once again one on, one off, right? It is straddling the line, and so we're going to go that whole edge, and I want it to finish with that needle in and then over. Okay, so now I lift the foot to rotate. I rotate, and I got a nice long straightaway here. And so if I go back, this part with all the extras and trying to feed it around is by far the hardest part of this. If you're doing numbers, you have the crest to worry about because you obviously don't want to crease that. If you're doing a crest, you got to worry about the numbers on the back. Luckily, this is blank, so it helps. Look, if there's any professionals out here watching this and you have a thought on how to deal with this better, let me know, because I figured EPS has state-of-the-art big sewing machines where they don't have to worry about this side of things. According to the video I saw, no, it's a normal sewing machine like this one, just probably more industrial. So that's the one thing I really have not figured out. And if there's a life hack there, if there's the proper way to do it, leave a comment. There's no need to rush either. The speed means nothing. Fast or slow, it does the same stitch. As long as it's feeding the fabric, do what you're comfortable with. And if that's really slow, it's really slow. That's fine. All right, planting that needle, lift foot, rotate. And so this is going to run straight down this edge, making sure that it is on both one on, one off, making sure that it's moving through. Sometimes you might need to nudge it a little because this fabric can be fussy. Reeboks likes to stretch a lot. Fanatics, I thought, was really tough to keep it moving properly. Differences in stretchiness between two types of fabric, like this obviously does not stretch, this will stretch. When it comes to putting on patches and kits, that's by far the worst part. And I was told when I was learning all this that is the hardest thing to master. So, yeah, keep that in mind. I'll know for these last two. The wheel on the side This one, as you do through, it'll manually move the needle, which gives you much greater accuracy. Let me show on some better zoom for this part. Straightaways, easiest to stitch, also where most frays happen. Figured I'd change up the look. Alright, so, home stretch. Again, keeping it so that we're on both sides of that edge. That's another thing. Stopping doesn't really do much. I mean, I'm sure it's not good for the machinery to just, leave a needle in and walk away. But in theory, you can. There's nothing that means like, oh, I have to rush this right now. It's also very easy just to lift it out and lift the needle out and take this off and just be like, I'm not feeling this right now. There's very little commitment to this other than the look and the fact that, stitches go in. It can't really undo that. Well, you're going to do the stitch, but you can't undo the holes you've poked in something like twill. So... finish every time you start and stop, and you can start and stop as many times as you want, pulling away, starting new things. You're going to be left with threads. So the two threads I started with, the start, the end, and I'm going to need to cut that off. And then on the inside, you're going to have the same thing, where I started, where I stopped. And I think it's a point of pride, I don't know if it actually is in this community, to use one thread whole way around. Like, that's always my goal, is to do this in one fell swoop. Now you can clearly see this is a much better jersey. It's no longer fraying. We've contained the problems, and we have a nice stitch the whole way around, which I think looks fairly classy. Like, this is what a jersey ought to be, and what Reebok should have done from the beginning. And you see all of this is stitched. Why can't you stitch this on? Anyways, let's finish it, shall we? All right, so look, we've taken a $32 jersey that was having a lot of damage. I'm sure a lot of people on eBay passed it over, and in 20 minutes, 25 tops, we fixed this. And a tougher crest, not that much more difficult. Half hour to 45 minutes if you're going slow. So I think that's well worth the investment to get a jersey like this. This is what is the value of a skill like this. You can save a ton of money just by fixing things and stabilizing and making them better. And now this is ready for the customizers. And I'm sure Shrems is going to be thrilled when I give it to him. Like, this is why you learn this. And I by no means am I good at this. Just some practice. I learn from the best and going from that. So hopefully this has been helpful. Don't be afraid. If you have a sewing machine, or if you're in the market to look for one, can't tell you I know much about that. That was purchased for me. I'll tell you what I got if that helps. But yeah, it doesn't take a lot to get in here and learn and practice. And now you can start saving some real money. And look, it's a good skill to have. You never know when you're going to need it. So I'm John for Phil and Shrems here on Ugly Thirds. Another episodes of Loose Threads in the books. Don't forget to like and subscribe. If this was helpful, leave a comment below. Anything I can do to help, anything I can do to make this easier, explain, hit me up in the comments. Thanks.